This household is the worst. My parents are bedridden, and on top of that, my older brother is confined to a wheelchair. Keep your voice down. Everyone can hear you. I'm saying it loud enough so they can hear. Put yourself in my shoes. I come home exhausted from work every day, only to return to a house filled with sick people. It's depressing. Recently, my husband has been complaining as soon as he comes home every day. I'm terrified that his harsh words will reach my in-laws and Bill, who are sleeping in the other rooms. However, Brian, you don't do anything. As soon as you come home, all you do is lay there and ask what's for dinner. Can I take a shower? You don't even go check on your family. That's what I've been saying. I'm exhausted from work. I can't do all that. If you're not going to do anything, you have no right to complain. Wait, aren't you misunderstanding something here? Misunderstanding what? Housework is your job, isn't it? Who do you think is providing for you? Don't act so high and mighty. You wouldn't survive without me. My name is Rachel. I'm 32 years old. I've been married for 6 years. I lost my parents in a traffic accident the year I entered elementary school and lived in a foster home until I graduated from high school. After that, I got a job at a factory making electronic components, a subsidiary of a major electrical equipment manufacturer. My husband joined the parent company a year after I started working there, straight out of university. We got to know each other when he was assigned to our factory, started dating, and eventually got married. My Bill was single and worked as a system engineer. He was working as a freelancer. When we got married, he started living alone in a rented apartment that doubled as his workplace, and my husband and I moved in with his parents. When I met his parents for the first time, they treated me warmly despite knowing I grew up in an foster home. I was often looked down upon because I didn't have parents, so their kindness deeply touched me. My mom fell ill a few years ago and was mostly bedridden, so I quit my job when I got married and became a full-time housewife. On her good days, she would teach me, who wasn't very good at housework, various things. I have 2 sons, so I always wanted to cook with my DIL. I'm really happy that you're here, Rachel. I caught myself wondering if my mom were still alive, would we have spent time together in the kitchen like this? When I made a mistake with my cooking, my husband would often criticize me, but my in-laws would eat it without a word of complaint. She put a lot of effort into it, so you should just eat quietly instead of complaining. My Phil would often scold my husband. My Bill would only visit once a month, but he was always smiling. He would bring sweets from famous shops and share them with me. He was always thoughtful and kind, like a real brother. I was truly happy to be part of their family. However, 3 years ago, when my Phil retired, my mom contracted pneumonia and started living a mostly bedridden life. She had been talking about going on trips with her husband after his retirement, so she was devastated. I did everything I could to cheer her up. My Phil, now free after his retirement, actively helped with her care. My Bill also came to our house to take care of her, and slowly she started to smile again. However, the next year, my Phil also fell ill. He was hospitalized for about 2 months and, like my Mill, became mostly bedridden. My husband didn't even visit him in the hospital, but my Bill often visited and helped with his care, which was a great relief. My Bill, John, told me it's only natural to take care of his father, without making a face. On the other hand, my husband doesn't take care of my Mill at all, not even when I'm at the hospital. I've got a job, you know, it's not some laid-back gig like John's where I can just hang at home, is my husband's excuse. It irks me, but with John's help, we managed to get through while my Phil was in the hospital. But now, we have to start taking care of both of them. I thought it was only natural to take care of my in-laws, but it's frustrating that my husband is not at all cooperative. Hey, can you help out a bit on your days off? I think it'd make your dad and mom happy. I've got no time for that. John doesn't even live here, but he anyways comes here to help. Why don't you do anything when you live here? That's because he doesn't live here. Be grateful I'm even staying here. As days go by, my husband's foul mouth got worse. I never knew he was like this, and my disappointment just grows. It was such a relief that John would pop in to check on his parents, and I could get the shopping and housework done. I was starting to get used to this life, thinking maybe we can make it work. But then, John had a car accident and suffered a severe spinal injury. Now he's bound to a wheelchair. Why does everything bad keep happening? I found myself very upset. John, now in a wheelchair, had to move back to his parents' place. Great, another mouth to feed. Is this your fault? What are you talking about? Ever since I married you, it's been one disaster after another. Are you some kind of jinx? When he says that, I start to feel like maybe I am. Maybe they'd be better off if I just disappeared. But if I leave, what will happen to my in-laws and John? I couldn't see my husband taking care of all three of them. And since John came back, my husband hardly ever came home. He's always working late or having business dinners. On his days off he's playing golf or out with friends. John's getting used to life in a wheelchair, and he can do some simple things on his own, but not everything. And he's still the same bright and kind person he was before the accident, which sometimes makes me wonder if he and my husband are really brothers. My in-laws and John were hurt by the way my husband treats me, and they told me I can leave him if I want, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Then one night, my husband came home drunk, and he brought a woman with him. Hey, I'm home, this is my maid. My husband introduced me to the woman. Come on, she must be your wife. She actually looks like a maid though. Who are you? I'm Brian's girlfriend. He said he wanted to show me what his wife looks like, so here I am. I didn't expect such an old lady though. What's your problem coming to my house? Chill out, I brought Brian home because he's drunk. You could at least thank me. That's right, don't get all high and mighty, maid. And with that, my husband passed out. No sleeping here, Brian. Oh well, I can't help it. I'll leave him to you. She shrugged and waved as she left. I was on the verge of tears looking at my drunken husband snoring in the entrance. I'd rather be a maid than deal with this. If I was a maid, I wouldn't feel so humiliated and could keep it professional. The next morning, I confronted my husband about bringing a woman home. What's the big deal, so early in the morning? I'm hungover, you know. Yesterday, the woman who came back with you said she was your girlfriend. She said that, huh? Is it true? Yeah, it is. As the husband smirked, he answered without the slightest hint of guilt. I could feel my heart turning cold as he admitted his affair so casually to his wife. So, you've been cheating? Well, I guess you could say that, but you're not even a woman to me anymore. What do you mean? Why do you think I married you? Why? I thought you would be a good maid. What? My mother was always in a condition where she could need care at any moment. I married you so you could take care of her when that time comes. I don't really understand. With a woman who has no family, nobody will complain no matter how I treat her. You have no place to go, so you have to stay here. Well, I didn't expect my father and brother would be in need for care as well, but whether it's one or three, it's all the same. With my husband laughing and speaking as if it was all a joke, I could feel the strength draining from my body. Did he see me this way from the very beginning? The thought that he married me with such intentions brought tears to my eyes. Seeing me like this, my husband laughed again. I'll leave you here, so make sure you take good care of them. And don't complain about whatever I do outside. You don't have the right to do that. You're just a housekeeper and a caregiver. I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. But I couldn't just leave either. Just like my husband said, I have no place to go or rely on. But more than anything, I can't abandon my in-laws and Bill, who have been so kind to me. They were the ones who taught me what it felt like to have a warm family. How could I just leave them behind? If I divorce my husband, I'll be a stranger to them. But the only ones I could call my family are them, and I couldn't let go of that feeling. Seeing that I couldn't argue back, my husband became even more outrageous. He had no problem cursing in front of my in-laws and Bill. I'm so unlucky, surrounded by these three burdens. I need to blow off some steam, or I can't go on. From my perspective, he's not doing anything around the house or helping with the caregiving, just saying and doing whatever he wants, even freely having affairs. It seemed like he's having enough fun. Oh, I'm taking my paid leave next month and going on a trip to Hawaii with my girlfriend. What? I need a break from this dreary house, so it's an affair trip, right? You're technically my wife, but you're not my main woman. I told you, you're just a caregiver. So this is not an affair trip, it's a trip with my main woman. I was speechless as my husband declared this loudly. There's no point in arguing with this man. Or rather, I couldn't even find the energy to argue or get angry anymore. I see. Do as you wish. I'd do so even without you telling me. His declaration of an affair trip couldn't stir up a shred of jealousy in me. I once again realized that I held no feelings whatsoever towards my husband. The only reason I was there was because I wanted to be with my in-laws and I can't leave my Bill behind. That was all I wanted. My husband was smugly telling his in-laws and his brother about his plans to travel with his mistress. My in-laws and my Bill were looking at my husband with very cold eyes. And so, the next month, my husband went off on his affair trip in high spirits. You should take care of the three without any worries. That's all you're good for. Rather than feeling angry, I was relieved to think that I wouldn't have to listen to his sarcastic words for at least a week. That night, I spent my time peacefully, and my in-laws and Bill seemed a little excited. And then I slept well. The next day, when I woke up, I had already overslept, and I hurried downstairs. Oh no, I overslept. You guys must be hungry. But when I rushed into the living room, I was frozen by the sight in front of me. It seemed I was still asleep. Was I dreaming? Because I've seen this scene in my dreams so many times. What's the matter, Rachel? You look like you've seen a ghost. Mima looked at me with a smile. I think I'll go wake up properly. Saying that, I turned around and was about to return to my bedroom. I thought I was saying something that didn't make sense, but I thought it was because I was in a dream. No, what are you saying? You're definitely awake. What? We're in the middle of a strategy meeting. There was a whiteboard set up in the living room, and my Bill was standing in front of it with a pen, writing something. The whiteboard said escape plan. Was this not a dream? Why was my Bill standing? Where was his wheelchair? I looked around the room and saw it folded up in a corner of the hallway. Come on, Rachel, don't just stand there. Come sit at the table. Isn't this a dream? Well, shall we execute the plan? With that, my Phil stood up with a mischievous smile. Mima also got up from her seat as if to follow him. I almost collapsed when the three of them, who were standing, looked at me. And then, a whirlwind week passed, and my husband, who had returned from his trip, called with a bouncing voice. I'm at the airport now, about to head home with my girlfriend. What? Have dinner ready. From now on, she'll be living with us. Don't worry, you're staying right where you are, taking care of us, playing the part of a housemaid for both me and her. Oh, I see. Do as you wish then. You're a pitiful woman, you know. You can't even complain when your husband brings another woman home. You have nowhere else to go, no family to rely on. You're stuck clinging on to me. Anyway, keep on serving me. He seemed to be enjoying himself immensely. He was probably overjoyed because everything was going exactly as he planned. I didn't say anything. An hour later, I received a frantic call from him, a total contrast from his previous call. What's going on? What do you mean? There's a stranger in our house. Oh, they must have moved in. Who are they? What are you talking about? Well, it's a rental property, isn't it? Once we moved out, it's rented to someone else. The real estate agent told us he appreciated how well we kept the place clean. What do you mean, we moved out? Our home was a rented single-family house we started leasing when we got married. It was meant to be for us and my in-laws, with my Phil covering the rent. In fact, most of our living expenses were borne by him. At first, my husband did contribute to utilities and other expenses. But as my mother-in-law fell sick and my Phil became frail, he started to withhold his contributions, arguing that he was doing his part just by living with them. My Bill had doubts about his attitude, but he had already moved out and didn't feel he could say much. Then, he had a traffic accident. Initially, he was partially paralyzed and thought he'd be confined to a wheelchair for life. But within a week, he began to improve. Though it seemed to be temporary, he used this as an excuse to move back in with his parents. My in-laws were actually feeling much better, but with my husband's behavior, my Bill decided to play a trick on him. They pretended to still be in poor health to deceive him. That's when they started planning to leave the house behind him. My BIL's help was vital, so he returned home. My in-laws had secretly bought a retirement home using their retirement funds and savings, just in case something happens in the future. My Bill handled all the paperwork. While they were deciding when to move, they discovered my husband's trip with his mistress. They thought it was now or never to carry out the plan. I was utterly surprised when they told me about this plan. What's more, they had even arranged for a place for me to stay. I'm sorry for keeping this a secret from you, too, Rachel. I thought you wouldn't be able to keep it secret since you're such an honest person. No amount of gratitude would ever be enough for all that you've done for us, my in-laws said as they held my hand and smiled. I said I wished I could spend more time with them, and they told me, you have your own life, dear. You don't have to be tied down to us. My parents are in good hands with me around, Rachel. You don't have to worry about a thing. But you know, you're always welcome to visit. You mean more to us than a real daughter. We sincerely pray for your happiness. I was so overwhelmed with gratitude and happiness that I couldn't stop crying. When I told my husband about this, he was speechless. He must have turned pale as he had his eyes on my FIL's retirement funds. He used to tell me to get hold of my FIL's bank card. Now, he realized that's not going to happen. Where am I supposed to live? What about my stuff? He asked. You barely had any stuff. The furniture and appliances all belonged to my Phil. Your parents sold your belongings including expensive bags and watches and gave me the money they got from selling those as a down payment for alimony. I replied. Down payment for what? It's alimony for all the verbal abuse you've given me. And I will claim additional alimony for your affair separately. What? There's no way I'm paying alimony to a caregiver. It doesn't matter what you say. I was legally your wife, so I have the right to claim alimony from both you and the mistress. Well, that settles it. Wait, where are you now? Let's meet and talk. No way. I never want to see your face again, and I'm not telling you where I am. No way. I'll send the divorce paper and alimony claim to your office. After that, he tried to contact me numerous times, but I blocked him. But he was reluctant to proceed with the divorce. However, my Bill hired a lawyer, and we managed to finalize it, and I got a lump sum payment for alimony. Moreover, it turned out that the woman he cheated with was his friend's wife, and her furious husband confronted him at his office, exposing everything. My husband ended up losing his job. The woman he cheated with was kicked out of her house as she had been caught having an affair with my husband before her trip with him. That's why my husband was saying that they'd come back home together. But they ended up breaking up and he couldn't find a new job. I heard he's struggling with debt from his past extravagance and alimony payments and is juggling multiple part-time jobs. He asked my Bill for help, but of course, he refused and laughed it off. Later, I found a new job through my FIL's referral and am enjoying my work every day. I still meet my in-laws regularly and they treat me like a real daughter. I always look forward to seeing them. Additionally, my Bill is getting married to a wonderful woman. She's very kind and they make a great couple. I was also invited to their wedding. When my Bill said, I would be happy if you could attend as my sister, I couldn't help but cry. I hope to continue having a good relationship with my in-laws and Bill.